And now I'd like to introduce Ms. Therese Ndong-Jatta, who's the Regional Director for UNESCO. Her career started as a teacher, and she was a principal first of a secondary school for vocational training in the Gambia, and coordinator of educational management and training, and Chief Education Officer responsible for planning and Director of Secondary and Tertiary Education. Concurrently, she was the coordinator of the Education Sector Policy Review and the Formulation Master Plan for the Gambia from 1999 to 2004. Ms. Ndong-Jatta served as the Gambian Minister of Education, and during her tenure she introduced senior management teams. She implemented reforms aimed at increasing access to education, especially for girls, and for improving the quality of education. She joined UNESCO in September 2004 as Director of the Division of Basic Education in the education sector, and she led the delegation of her country to the sessions of the UNESCO General Conference, and has been a member of numerous boards of national and international bodies and working groups and study missions travelling abroad. Ms. Therese Ndong-Jatta, the Regional Director of Africa for UNESCO. Forward, back.
Thank you very much, John. Honorable Ministers, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good morning to you all. It is indeed a pleasure, and following off from the two speakers, I would say this is an occasion to build collective intelligence in dealing with Africa's problem. I must also say that following the global perspective presented by Chineze, mine would really give you an insight into the African situation. The first part would give the context and background, provide a statistical analysis, give you a little impression of the financing challenges of education in Africa. And I would proceed to dwell a little on the use of ICT to improve quality of education in Africa. And I must say at this point in time, I very much agree with Chinese's conclusion about technology in Africa. And finally, and this is the most important part of it, is focusing on how we can get there. Sometimes one feels not much is happening. A lot has happened in Africa. But when we take a quick look at what has been done in the last 50 years in terms of public investments in education, health, and welfare, these are the statistics we are confronted with. Is it one that could take us there in 2015? Hardly so. After close to half a century of public investments in education, health, and social welfare, African countries are still characterized by large populations that are mostly illiterate. And this is the challenge. No matter how well organized we may want to be, the processes in place could get us there, but the challenges are huge. You have around 72 million secondary school age young people and 30 million primary school age children in Africa outside the school system, without skills, without training. Investing in Africa. Yes, there's been huge investments, and we can show that for African governments across, as has been mentioned before, already we have really met that target that has been agreed upon in 2000. What has been the return? Have we built human capital? In education, it would require huge resources of both the number and skills of teachers. Without adequate number of qualified teachers, the goals of education for all will remain but wishful thinking. But more and more, it is believed that we have it right. The focus should be on basic education, setting the right foundation. The challenge, though, is targeting the lowest quintiles, the rural populations, the marginalized groups. And research has shown that it is not when children go to primary school that they start to learn. Learning begins well before primary school. And this is where we're getting it wrong in Africa. The earlier slides depicts that children 0 to 6 years are grossly neglected. Only 12% are prepared for school. The earlier slides also tell us that most rural populations, marginalized groups, are undernourished. And we have sufficient scientific evidence through neuroscience research that the first 3 years of life are the most important. And therefore, as we address education issues, we should work closely and collaborate closely with the Ministry of Health. The prenatal stages, from the fetal stage, right up to 8 years, if we do not really work with parents in providing the foundation for school, we would not, with the best programs in the world, be able to ensure that students learn well. And this is, to some extent, what explains the low performance levels in the school system. So we therefore, the first message is that we need to provide more investments at the earlier years. We are 4 years to the global targets that have been set for EFA. 4 years where the 20% of children that should be in school are out of school. 4 years to go, yet we have huge needs of teachers in the system. 4 years to go, yet quality is appalling. What do we do? There are no quick fixes, but technology could really come in handy. ICTs can fill these gaps and get us there. But how can this be done? At the moment, in as much as there are investments in this direction, it is not in any way responding to how teachers could be better trained. Certification and professional development is a far cry. Teachers need additional training, but cannot leave their classrooms. Millions of teachers need to be trained. And I believe ICT has a solution for that. We need only to be solution-oriented. At the moment, there are softwares, but they are not really context-specific. Working with teachers and teacher educators and universities, it is possible to put together programs that could help improve the quality of teachers in our school system, as well as train those who are in the pre-service programs. Are we investing in ICTs? We've been told yes, we do. However, it is not being used as a tool for teaching and learning. And this is where the difference really would be made. We really need to research to maximize the return and long-term sustainability of this investment. The practice generally for most African countries is to really take in a lot of second-hand computers, create labs, but there are no skilled teachers to help students to even surf the net. We could use ICT to improve quality of education in Africa. However, the use of ICT in education requires that we have a set of trained, qualified professionals to really support the school system. UNESCO is giving a high priority to the use of ICT for more equitable and pluralistic development in education. Open and distance learning is particularly used to improve the competence of unqualified teachers and give them an opportunity for continuous education or professional development. UNESCO is currently supporting ministries of education in their efforts to integrate ICT in the teacher education programs by developing a broad partnership with public intergovernmental organizations such as Commonwealth of Learning and private providers. In 2008, UNESCO, Cisco, Intel, Microsoft, and the International Society for Technology in Education developed the competency framework for teachers. The main goal of this initiative is to support local governments, public and private sector organizations to create context, execution frameworks, and measurement of teacher competencies as part of the comprehensive approach to education reform. The Institute for Capacity Building in Africa, ICBA, in collaboration with ministries of education in some of the regional economic communities, have focused on work with policymakers and heads of teacher education to develop ICT-enhanced teacher standards to guide countries use ICT in education. Another initiative is underway with the Open University of Tanzania in curriculum development to build capacities of curriculum developers and teacher educators through a dual mode of face-to-face and open and distance learning. These, therefore, are examples to show that it is possible where we work together to really improve standards. There are also possibilities that through ICT, we will be able to realize lifelong learning and productivity. In the world we are in today, there is nothing like training for a job. There are the changing circumstances that require reskilling to ensure that we are able to compete.